The last photo in the high school yearbook was never there before. A senior student, dressed in the school's uniform, stood among the graduates, staring directly ahead. His face was pale, his eyes hollow, and his smile unsettling. No one remembered him. No one knew his name. But when the students started disappearing one by one, they realized the boy in the photo had something to do with it. Samantha gripped the yearbook tightly, her fingers trembling. It was supposed to be a night of celebration, her final year of high school, filled with bittersweet goodbyes and hopeful futures. Her best friend, Kyle, had been talking nonstop about moving to New York for college, and Mia was set to travel to Europe. They had all worked so hard to make it to this moment. But now, as she stared at the eerie photograph, a cold weight settled in her chest. She flipped through the pages frantically. She had seen every student's face in real life. But this boy, he wasn't in their class. He wasn't even supposed to exist. A loud thud echoed through her bedroom. The yearbook slipped from her hands as she spun around, heart pounding. Her window was open, though she didn't remember opening it. The curtains fluttered as the night wind whispered through. Then, scratch, scratch, the sound of nails dragging against wood. Samantha's blood ran cold. She took a shaky step forward. That's when she saw it. A shadow, impossibly tall and thin, loomed just outside her window, its head tilted sharply as if it could see her. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. The power cut out, and then a voice, a whisper that crawled into her ears and made her skin prickle. "You see me now, but will you remember me tomorrow?" The next morning, Samantha rushed to school, desperate to tell Kyle and Mia about what had happened. But when she found Kyle's locker, her breath hitched. It was wide open. His books were on the floor, scattered like he had left in a hurry. But Kyle was nowhere. She ran to Mia's classroom, her pulse hammering. "Mia!" she cried, pushing through the crowd of students. But her friend just gave her a blank stare. "Who's Mia?" she asked. Samantha's stomach twisted. The room blurred. Kyle's desk was empty. Mia's name wasn't even on the class roster. It was as if they had never existed. Heart racing, Samantha sprinted to the principal's office, clutching the yearbook in her trembling hands. Look at the picture," she screamed. The principal took the book and flipped to the last page. His face darkened. "This is impossible," he murmured. "This photo, it's over 50 years old." Samantha's mind reeled. "No, that can't be. It was printed this year," she cried. But the principal's hands shook as he traced the eerie face in the photo. This student, he was in the graduating class of 1974. He disappeared the night before graduation, and every 10 years a student vanishes, just like him. Samantha staggered back, her blood turning to ice. Samantha's breathing grew ragged. The walls of the principal's office seemed to close in around her. Scratch, scratch, that sound again. It was coming from the window behind her. The principal's face drained of color. "No, not again," he whispered. Slowly, Samantha turned. The shadowy figure was there. This time, it wasn't outside. It was inside the room, standing just behind her. And before she could scream, the lights flickered, and everything went black. The principal's office was dark, silent. The yearbook lay open on the desk, its pages fluttering as if touched by an unseen force. Samantha had been standing there just moments ago, but now she was gone, vanished. The only trace of her was the faint whisper that still echoed in the air. "You see me now, but will you remember me tomorrow?" The hallways of Blackwood High felt empty without Kyle and Mia. Samantha walked in a daze, gripping the yearbook so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She had spent years with them, laughing, dreaming about the future. And now, they were nothing but ghosts. No, not even ghosts. It was like they had never existed at all. She had tried to call their parents. No answer. She had searched their social media accounts. Gone. Even the photos on her phone. Erased. Samantha sat at the lunch table, staring at the empty seats where Kyle and Mia used to sit. She whispered their names under her breath, her voice shaking. "Where did you go?" The worst part wasn't that they were missing. It was that no one else seemed to notice. That night, Samantha couldn't sleep. The whispering was back. It started as a faint hum, like wind slipping through cracks in the walls. But then it grew stronger, closer. "Samantha? You're next." Her bedroom door creaked open. She bolted upright, her pulse hammering in her ears. The hallway light flickered, casting long, stretching shadows across the floor. And then she saw him, the boy from the yearbook. He stood in her doorway, his head tilted at an unnatural angle. His uniform was faded, torn at the edges, and his eyes, they were hollow. Black pits that seemed to swallow the dim light. He lifted his hand, long fingers curling like claws. Samantha tried to scream, but no sound came out. The boy took a step forward, then another, and then he ran at her. The next morning, Samantha woke up on the floor, gasping for breath. Her body ached as if she had been dragged across the room. Her nails were broken, her fingertips raw, like she had clawed at something in the night. She stumbled to the mirror. Her reflection stared back, wild-eyed, shaking, and then she saw something that made her blood turn to ice. On her wrist, a name had been carved into her skin. Kyle. Tears blurred her vision. No, this isn't real, she whispered. Her breath hitched. She grabbed her phone, her fingers trembling, and opened the school's website. She searched for the 1974 graduating class. She scrolled through the names, her heart hammering in her chest. And then, there it was. Kyle's name. Not just his name, his photo. It was him. But not the Kyle she knew. This Kyle was wearing the same faded school uniform as the boy in the yearbook. The same hollow eyes. The same unnatural smile. Samantha dropped her phone, her hands shaking violently. Kyle had been gone for less than a day. And yet, he was already part of the past. 4. The unbelievable revelation. The door to her bedroom slammed shut. Samantha spun around, her breath catching in her throat. The shadows in the corners of her room began to shift, growing taller, darker. Then a voice. A whisper, curling around her like cold fingers. "You can't stop it." Samantha turned, her eyes wide with terror. The yearbook lay open on her desk. The pages flipped on their own, one after another, faster and faster, until they stopped at the last page. The boy was no longer standing alone. Kyle was in the photo now, right beside him. Samantha stumbled back, shaking her head. No, this isn't possible. The photo was changing. Slowly, painfully, another face began to appear beside them. Her own. Samantha's vision blurred. The room tilted. She felt something pulling at her, dragging her toward the book. The whispering grew louder, more urgent. "You see me now, but will you remember me tomorrow?" She fought against the force, but it was useless. The last thing she saw before the world turned to darkness was her own reflection in the yearbook, her own hollow eyes staring back, and her own name written under the list of graduates from 1974.